Welcome once again to another edition of Quoth the Raven, Lewis Bright Raven. I'm your host, Lewis Bright Raven, 29-year veteran writer, artist, and editor of comic, science fiction, fantasy, horror, and role-playing games. And we're doing Booktober 2021. Today is day 7. I hope you're having a good week so far. And today's book is the FABLES Deluxe Edition, Book 1. Written by Bill Willingham, with art by Lan Medina and Mark Buckingham as the pencilers, and the late Steve Leialoha, who unfortunately recently passed away from COVID-related symptoms, maybe about a month or so back. And inks also by Craig Hamilton. And we'll take a look at this book a little bit as far as the visual, graphics. But first, let's go ahead and talk about the book. Now, let's do it this way. It is the deluxe edition, book 1 hardcover. It is $29.99. The publisher is DC Comics. Writer, of course, is Bill Willingham, with artists Lan Medina, Mark Buckingham, Steve Leialoha, and Greg Hamilton, as I said a moment ago. Letterer for this was Todd Klein, with colors by Sherilyn Van Valkenburg and Daniel Dozo. The genre is kind of like a fantasy mystery stuff, at least in this volume. And this collection was originally released in 2009, but the original single issues were released between 2002 and 2003. What it's about. Imagine that all the characters from the world's most beloved storybooks were real and living among us with all their varied powers intact. How would they cope with life in our mundane, non-magical reality? Well, that's the premise of this series. The co-leads of the book are Bigby Wolf, aka the Big Bad Wolf, who is now a werewolf detective, and Snow White, who is a deputy mayor of Fabletown, which is their little section of New York City that's kind of hidden amongst the rest of New York City. And while Snow is the deputy mayor, she's really the one who runs the town. Now, there are 2 books arcs featured. First is a murder mystery where it happens to appear that Snow White's little sister, Rose Red, has been killed, and Bigby has to investigate the case, not the case, with Snow at his side. The second arc is Snow and Red. Apparently, Red did not die. Sorry to spoil it for you. Goes up to upstate New York to the farm where there seems to be dark secrets and plans to expose the fables to the real world, and Snow has to figure out how to stop it without Bigby's help. Now, the farm is basically where all the talking animals and non-humanoids are forced to live, kind of separated. And it's kind of got a weird vibe going on. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but it's just kind of an interesting storyline. Now, this series overall has won 12 Eisner Awards, and was a Hugo Award nominee for the Best Graphic Novel Story in 2009. So it's not like this book isn't well received, or the series isn't well received. I've just never really gotten into it, and we'll talk about why in just a moment. Yeah, let's do it this way. Now, I enjoy the work for what it is. And artwork is nice and exceptional. I don't know who does the cover for this painted cover offhand. It might be James Jean, because James Jean does the covers for the actual books, singles. Let me see if it's actually on here anywhere. Yeah, it's James Jean. So the cover is by James Jean. It looks nice, for what it is. I'm just not really that into it. There's the back cover side of it. Let me see if I can go ahead and, there we go. It's it's cool looking. Sorry, I'm blocking the there. Does that help? Nope, it doesn't. There we go. Now you can see it, and I'm not blocking a tiger's face or anybody's face. All right, and I apologize for the sheen of the glare. I am assuming that this is also James Jean for some of the examples in here. Now here's some of the art by Lan Medina and Steve Leialoha. And this has got Snow as the deputy mayor talking to Beauty and the Beast. And the Beast is reverting back to his beastly self the longer that they're in a relationship, because the love has grown, it's gotten, the bloom of the relationship is gone off the vine, shall we say, and she's more critical of him, and the more she doesn't respect him, doesn't completely love him, the more he turns into the Beast again. Kind of a weird thing, but okay, makes sense, I guess. If you don't mind, I'm going to get this jacket cover off the book. It's very annoying. Again, there's without the cover, jacket cover. Looks nice, It just doesn't have the text on it, basically. Again, here's some more of the artwork by Lan Medina and Steve Leialoha, and it's nice. Certainly, it was better than I remembered when I first looked at it. I was not really a huge fan of the art. Snow's ex, Prince Charming, is putting his charms on mundanes and getting them to use, basically just mentally enthralling them. But here's the murder scene that Bigby Wolf, as you can see, he's standing there in human form, but you can see his big bad wolf werewolf persona is actually there in shadow. It's kind of like a glamour that he looks like human. But that's what the crime scene of Red Rose's apartment looks like. And so Bigby investigates this thing, and he kind of interrogates the guy who discovered the crime scene, which is Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk, who's supposed to be Red Rose's boyfriend. Then there's another character, Bluebeard, that is a suspect, and so on. And he just kind of interrogates all of them. And he has some other kind of like Columbo-ish type things going on with what he's doing to figure out what goes on. He already knew from the very beginning who really was going on. So the reveal, well, I kind of spoiled it a little bit earlier. Rose isn't actually dead. That's because she faked her own death. And there's reasons for it, but I'm not going to get into it. It's all well crafted and exceptional in terms of the craftsmanship of the art. And Willingham does a really nice job with how he goes about presenting it. It's just, for me, well, let's get back over here to the other side here of the graphics here. It doesn't resonate with me as a reader. I understand totally why the series is so popular with its audience, and I certainly think it deserves the accolades that it's received. There's nothing about the book that I didn't like in terms of, light entertainment, but it just doesn't resonate with me as a reader. And I think that might be because of the premise itself and the derivative nature of it, in the sense that you're introducing using all these characters from literature and folklore, that I feel that while there's a lot of clever and well thought out connections to these different things that he's trying to interweave and forge into a whole in the story and throughout the story, it just feels a little bit too derivative and unoriginal for me, which isn't really exactly true in the strictest sense. I'm having a difficult time trying to explain it. Willingham does go to great lengths to try and give you the exact opposite, and I do appreciate that effort. Like I said, he's very clever at times with it. But I think in trying so hard to be clever and make all the connections between the characters and how they relate to each other and all under one roof, so to speak, he loses a little bit of his originality and plot, and a little bit too much of the story structure is too obvious for me. And I guess that's why I feel like it's a little bit too derivative and not as good as it could be. And I know that's hard to explain because it is so well crafted, and it's, I guess, probably because of the nature of how what he's doing. He is doing it arguably at, if not the highest level one could do it, he's doing it at an excessively, well, not excessive, but an extremely high level of quality. So I'm not going to say he's not doing quality work. It just makes the story structure and plot a little bit too obvious for me personally, especially when Big Me starts doing the detective explanation bit during the first story arc and the structures of the second arc, with other elements being obvious to me as well. But it just doesn't wow me the way the hype always promised me. Everybody said, "Oh, you've got to read this book. You'll be amazed. You'll be, it'll blow your mind." And I was like, I don't think so, but yeah, because it really didn't when I first looked at the first issue back in 2002. And so now that I've read the first 10 issues, my initial assumptions are correct. It doesn't really wow me, but at the same time, it's not like it's a bad comic. It's actually quite an exceptional comic in its own right for what it is. Again, Lan Medina's art was much better than I remembered it being when I first saw this. The late Steve Leialoha did an exceptional job making him during the first story arc. And Mark Buckingham was good, but I don't think he was good as Medina. But I also think Medina was probably having to take a break. I think he needed to be spelled to have him keep deadlines intact. So I think that's kind of why he left after the first arc. I could be wrong. I'm not familiar with the rest of Fables, so maybe each arc was drawn by somebody else. I don't know. That could be true. But overall, based on what I've read here, and the fact that I only paid $5.99 for the book at Ollie's Bargain Outlet, it was certainly worth my time to read the book. If for no other reason than just to say, yes, I have read at least part of the series when people demand that I do so. They're like, they always say I don't give certain books that they like a chance. Well, I try to give everybody's recommendation a chance. It's just that a lot of times you think I should be reading, I just don't like, and I don't want to necessarily trash other people's books on the show that much. So I try to find stuff that I'm actually at least going to give a relatively decent review for. That being said, I don't think I'll ever really read the entirety of the series. Maybe, if I find other collections of it in a library, but I don't think I'll ever own it. Not that it's unworthy of the praise that it's received by any means. I think it's certainly worthy of it, especially if Willingham gets even more unique and original in later story arcs in the series. And it does exhibit a high level of craftsmanship on all levels and categories. I just think that I'm not the ideal audience for what this book is. I recommend it for ages 16 and up because of explicit language and adult situations, and I give the book 4 out of 5 stars. And that pretty much covers our review of Fables. But let's take a little bit more look at the work. I did show you a little bit of the Medina Leialoha stuff, but let me go ahead and go to this is still Leialoha. This is Mark Buckingham and Craig Hamilton's art. And, they're still on model. You can see Rose Red. She's kind of like with her sister Snow White in the second story. They're heading up to the farm. The truck broke down. Here's what the farm looks like. You see old McDonald's farm, so to speak, and you see old Mother Hubbard, or Mother Hubbard, the woman who lived in the shoe, anyway. But it's interesting. It's kind of hidden back out in the woods, and so, and then here's all the critters that live there, the talking animals, and they're talking about basically trying to go up against the adversary, which doesn't really appear in this book. They just talk about it a little bit in the first 10 issues of the book. The reason that these fable characters are in our realm, our dimension, whatever you want to say, is because they were kicked out of the magical realms by the adversary. They don't really tell us much about that history in 10 issues. They're too busy doing other things. And that could be another reason why I wasn't really sold on this, because we're almost a year in the book and you still haven't really told me what the key storyline for the arc is. That history hasn't been really even touched upon. But anyway, the animals basically want to try and go fight off the adversary and get their lands back, which has been something that Snow and others are saying, no, can't do it. We're not powerful enough, or whatever. I wish that had been a little more explored in the book. But the artwork, again, nice, very nicely done. No real mistakes or anything I could really discount or anything like that in the book. So, again, I would recommend checking out the book. It's not fairy tales for kids. It's fairy tales for adults, so to speak. But there's scenes like Pinocchio's in the book, and he's talking to Snow White, and he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" And he's like, "I hate these parties." Well, why not? Because I've been around for hundreds of years, but I never grew up. I want my balls to drop so I can get laid. Like, okay, because he's a real boy at the end of the story, and of course he's kind of looking for the fairy that transformed him from the wooden puppet to the real boy type thing. It's kind of a funny situation. But it's little things like that really kind of skew the book towards an older audience. Okay. So tomorrow, our book will be The Fire of Theseus by Jerry Frizen and Francesco Trifogli from Humanoids. It'll be at October 8th, 11:30 a.m. EST, and we will Eastern Standard Time. And we'll see you then for that. But in the meantime, if you enjoyed our video, or you think others might, please hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons to continue to get support from this channel. As always, I thank you for watching and for your support. If you want to reach out to me, I'm on Facebook at Lewis.BrightRaven, at Twitter at LewisBrightRave2. You can see some of my artwork at deviantart.com/BrightRaven. You're watching Quote the Raven, Lewis Brightraven, exclusively on YouTube. If you want to email me with questions, comments, if you want to commission me for artwork, try Quote the Raven LBR72 at gmail.com first, and I'll do my best to respond either privately or publicly on the show. And if for some reason I'll get back to you, then try LewisBrightRaven at yahoo.com. Now, I will be back later this afternoon with the regular weekly edition of What Did You Get This Week? I didn't think I was going to, because my comic book retailer was saying he wasn't going to get his shipment until today. But fortunately, they did get their books yesterday. And apparently, everything that was supposed to be there this week was there. We're still trying to find out what happened to last week's shipment. Like I said, we'll talk about that sort of thing on Monday, because it's kind of a big brouhaha about all the issues with distribution. We'll talk about that a little bit, and we'll also talk a little bit about that Comicsgate stuff that I had mentioned a week or so ago. We'll get into that as well on Monday. Okay, so that will be the thing. Later today, we'll do What Did You Get This Week? Tomorrow, October 8th, 11:30, we'll review Theseus, Fire of Theseus. And on Saturday, we'll have another edition of Booktober, and we'll also possibly have a live draw as well, either Saturday or Sunday this week. Okay? So until then, we'll see you next time. Have a good one.